Hey, Kendall, thanks for joining me today in our little quest to find some information about the past.
You bet.
Um, I thought we could just start with, so tell me a little bit about how you came to work for Walters and Wolf.
Sure. Yeah. Oh, Steve, I'm going to shut the door here. I apologize.
No, no worries.
We're already off. I'm back. Look, just noise outside.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me today, Kendall. This is going to be fun. I'm excited to talk to you a little bit about how things were in the old days of Walters and Wolf. So tell me a little bit about how you started with Walters and Wolf.
Sure. Yeah. Kendall Phillips, and I'm in Jumpstart, and I've been with Walters and Wolf for 30 something years, maybe 31, maybe. And so, yeah, so I was working in Dallas, Texas for a curtain wall company there, and they did the same thing Walters and Wolf does primarily is they design, manufactured, and installed custom curtain wall. And so, it's interesting coming from that company to here because you think, okay, it's going to be more of what we've done in the past. But when I got here, we were doing can systems and almost nailing them down with powder actuated fasteners to concrete and, pressure plate systems and things like that. And I had never seen one of those. So I get here and John Fulton and other people are going, what, you sure you've got experience? Because the stuff we were working on was a little more monumental at the time. And it was stick wall still. No one was really doing unitized, but had never really done just can systems or pressure plate, just basic systems, right, that Walters and Wolf was doing. But yeah, so I came out and started January 9th, I believe, in 1996, 96, 91. We've been 91. And so, yeah, it was very interesting, very different times back then. I think I was the fifth draftsman. There was five, so there's four before me. There was Pete and then three others, and then myself. And so we had maybe 10 or 12 PMs and five draftsmen. And I actually started drawing by hand, which was new for me because the company I was at in Dallas had a CAD CAM, sort of a mini mainframe system that they were using. And so when I came here, all of a sudden I'm going backwards, right? And even at that time, AutoCAD was like an AutoCAD 3 or something. I don't know what it was in 91. So no one was even using AutoCAD. Walters and Wolf had a mini mainframe system themselves, but they didn't have one that I could use. So they didn't have an extra one. So I was probably drawing by hand for a year or so. And so it was a good learning experience as far as learning new systems and things I'd never seen before. I mean, what was nice was the quality of work that Walters and Wolf was doing, right? So it was not slipshod or substandard. And, so coming from where I was, and the quality we were doing, I could see that quality, even though it's different systems, was being used here as well, right? And so that was really, it was great to see once I got here, encouraging, right? Because I was, at the time I'm a 20, was I, how old am I? Jeepers, I don't know, I was 26, I think, just a kid. I was still just a kid. And I didn't know what to do, man. It's like, so, but it really was good, coming out and just again with the shop, having the shop there and being able to go out and see the resources and use that as a learning opportunity, because that was one of my biggest learning tools in Dallas was the shop that was right out the back door. It wasn't even a parking lot I had to cross. I just opened the door from the office and I was in the shop immediately, right? So again, that was great here because we did manufacture our own things, right? We're getting that feedback right away. And because we're installing it, we even get more feedback, right? So it's a great learning opportunity always to get that feedback. And so, yeah, it was, that's sort of how I got here and sort of how, things are a little different. And I got a mini mainframe soon and kept going. And eventually we got AutoCAD on PCs and things like that. And so it was interesting when I first got here, I was used to libraries and things like that, but here we really hadn't developed any. So I actually made my own libraries that I used for the longest time in our little mini systems, or sort of mini details even, you might say, of instead of having to go search for things onesie twosie, really trying to make it easier for myself. So I was, I wasn't doing auto lisp or anything, crazy like Zach. Zach doesn't have to worry about his job or anything, or Alan or anybody. They're all good. but what I could figure out by asking questions and trying to sort of learn how I could make my own life easier by making things easier for me to be able to do, right? And so, and then the company was fine with me doing it, right? I mean, that's another thing that's been great is, the company said, they weren't telling me no, I wasn't even asking them, I was just doing it, right? So as long as you're getting your stuff done, you can sort of do whatever you need to do to make it easier, Um, yeah, so that went good. And then, sort of the next phase, so we went through different phases. And again, really working with the PMs at that time. Sort of the PMs were the checkers of the time. At that time, PMs did their own fab drawings, did their own checking. They had their meetings with the architects and bringing things back. And it was definitely different, than we have it now with the level of processes and things like that. It was really a lot more, depending on the experience level of the PMs, the experience that you got as a draftsman and the direction you got, right? So, but again, I think, having the experience where I was and being able to ask intelligent questions, especially about, fasteners and anchors and things like that, and things makes it easier for your PM then to get the answers you need from the GC. One of the new parts for me was working with a structural engineer sort of in a different way. In Dallas, we actually had engineers in-house working for us that were licensed, that did all our stamping. So I had a little bit different relationship with our own engineers as we engineered our work. I mean, I could just walk down there and ask them. Didn't quite have that here. So, but, developed a relationship, started it with AWS, 28, 9, when they finally started letting me make phone calls to them, right? So yeah, so that's been a fun relationship, just building that with AWS, and just how that's worked out, and just the knowledge I've gained, bouncing ideas off of them, and then just, as I think Kevin McClinic would like to say, but even Steve too, I think is, but what's it really going to do? I understand what the numbers say, but in real life, what's it really going to do, right? So just really being practical about the engineering, right? And I even, and so even with that, I look back to the way I did my own planning, or when I was choosing fasteners, right? Again, we didn't have a fastener, we didn't have standard fasteners and just all the rest, right? You had sort of a list, but you learn to make lists, right? And so, okay, this was the fastener I used, you wrote it down. And then when you did another one, you look at the list, and it's either the one you've got on your list or it's not, and you go to a different one. And so you really figured out a way to have standard fasteners through it all, right? So it's, again, it's just those little things I learned, through different tasks of trying to make things easier and better for yourself, which is interesting, I think, is a sort of pushing forward to our sort of lean implementation these last few years is really, I think, one of the things, even the managers learned themselves, and we're saying is we've always done lean. We've always been trying to make things better, right, for the shop and the field. And, hopefully each person's been continually trying to make their specific job easier, right? And so we were doing that, ever since I got here. And that's been something that we've been doing. It wasn't like lean was new. It was maybe the terminology was new, right? But the actual steps and processes of what we're doing wasn't new. And then I would say one of the I'll say it's a milestone. I had a couple of milestones, but we've got great people working in the company, but I had the opportunity to work with Steve Foss really closely. And as a PM, he set a pretty high standard for involvement of a PM in a job and how he runs a job, and then how he interacted with me as a draftsman, right? And so the direction I got from him, as well as when I had concerns or questions, and him being willing to listen to them, to my input, my questions, and I just saying, just do what I say, right? But again, being able to explain certain things to me, again, as I'm continuing to learn at that time, still learning today. But again, that was really good. Another one would have been working with Joe Cardoza back on 3Com. No, Silicon Graphics. You guys are going, what? So there's no company. So they made a Jurassic Park movie. You don't even know what that is either. But so anyhow, yeah, so Silicon Graphics, we brought Joe Cardoza in from the field, and I spent a year with him in a trailer drawing hand sketches. And I learned so much about the field and what the field does and what the field's up against every day. So really trying to understand how our designs and our decisions we made affect our field, right? So I had a little bit about it with the shop up to that point, but more so, now I'm getting it with the field, and even with Joe, because Joe had an understanding of what comes out of the shop as well, right? So got such a clear understanding of how what we draw, the lines we put on paper, they mean something, right? And so how those things affect or can have an effect on whether they are easily fabricated, installed, or hard to fabricate, or impossible to fabricate, and having to do something crazy to try to get it done and in, right? So I think that was a really big times for me, and just in my progress through the company that's allowed me to, eventually get to where I am today, right? It's just been that continued understanding, not just limiting it to what I know and just use that, but really sort of pushing out, okay, what is that thing I don't know? And trying to continue to learn and figure those things out. So I mean, there's been other pivotal people, as well. I mean, numbers, Steve's been really pivotal for me since he got here, but I mean, people that aren't even here, Dave Morales, all sorts of people. And so then, I guess where I'm at now, more involved with sales and Jumpstart and system design. So again, working with our estimators has been really interesting, and it's a whole nother skill set to learn, right? As far as trying to understand what the owners and the architects are after and how best to achieve those, right? And then, so that's a skill, and I don't necessarily naturally have that, but, have worked on that, right? To be able to, go with our estimators and salesmen to these meetings, and our PMs even too, right? To be able to help get the architect what he wants, but really within the price that they're paying, right? And then that our estimators have, as well. And, and I think one of the things we're trying to do with the way we're dealing with our customers is really just uncovering what's there and being open and honest, right? With what we can and can't do. And when, and because we put a man on the moon, so I can do just about anything. But invariably, you don't want to necessarily pay to put a man on the moon, with a piece of glass, right? So what's the next step to that, right? So, and that's sort of where I'm at today in the journey I'm on, and still learning a lot about engineering as we're, with our next gen system that we're working on, and just a lot of the tests that we're doing ahead of time. As I just heard Steve say in a meeting just this morning, was, normally we would have already sold 3 jobs with it and be late on doing it for the next gen, right? We've definitely taken longer, I think, than we wanted, but we're continuing to learn so that hope that by the time we're ready to run with it, we've uncovered, as many bugs as we could, right? We'll always continue to PDC it.